Hi everyone, and welcome to this new edition of the Testimony Project. In today's edition we have Andy with us. Hi Andy,
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Where are you from?
I'm from America, from the United States, the state of Florida in the south.
Florida, nice. So you've been in China for how long?
We have been in Xiamen for 7 years now.
7 years.
Before this, we were in the States for 2 years. Before that, we were in Hong Kong and Northwest China. So since 2000, for the last 16 years, most of our life has been in Asia.
Wow. So you lost kind of the culture connection with America? Or?
Maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but we've tried to visit often, and we keep our ties with our family and friends.
Yeah, it's important. So what are you doing in China?
Right now, we're running a school, a Christian school called Jacob Tree, and yeah, it's been going very well. God has blessed us.
It's based only in China?
It is based here in China. It's an American curriculum,
Okay.
a homeschool style program. So students can study on their own and get an American diploma if they want.
All right. So how was it growing up when you were little children?
Yeah, when I was young, I grew up in a Christian home.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were believers in Jesus, and they went to church regularly and were very involved. So I grew up in a family that was involved in church. I went to Sunday classes. I went to Wednesday night classes. I did a lot of things as a child in the church.
Mm-hmm.
As I got older, my high school years, I was very involved in the youth group, the teens. I helped do programs, and I helped plan activities for other teenagers, my friends, and reaching out to those around me to come to church and try to bring them in and tell them about God. So I was very active in high school.
Were you at this time? So you were about 12? Right.
Well, in high school, I was very active. I gave my life to God. I kind of committed myself to God when I was 12 years old, and I was baptized at that time. The baptism was my way of showing people that I had made this life choice to follow Jesus and His will for my life.
It was an official statement?
Yeah, it was my symbol, my showing, my statement to my friends and to my family.
So you had a connection with God. You were.
Yeah, I would say I had the knowledge from growing up in the church and with the Christian family, and I had the faith. I believed that God was real and that Jesus was real, and yeah.
Did you pray often?
I would pray, and it was like I said, we did a lot of things through the church, but it wasn't until my college years, late in college years, that I really felt more of a personal relationship with God.
All right.
So when I left for college, I stopped going to church and I didn't lose my faith, but I wasn't very active anymore. Certainly not as active as I was in high school. I was doing my own thing. I was playing soccer,
yeah.
Football, American soccer, and my focus was just on sports and myself for a few years of college. My third year of college, I was actually cut from the team.
Oh.
A superstar freshman came in and took my position.
Oh no!
And that was devastating. I didn't know what was going on, and my dad told me I had to go to a cheaper college because the college I was at was very expensive. Oh. And if I wasn't playing soccer, I didn't need to be there.
Okay.
So yeah, at that time I moved to another university. I went to a university closer to an old high school friend who I later married.
Oh, yeah.
She was in another city, and when I got close to her and we started dating, my goals began to change from soccer and sports to her.
So you met your wife at this time. Was she a Christian also?
She was not a Christian.
Okay.
She had come, because in high school I was very active in the church, she had come to many of the church events. She was part of our group of friends, so we hung out a lot together, my friends and her friends. So we knew each other very well, but she was not a Christian at the time. And when we started dating, I felt strongly that I should marry a Christian.
Oh.
And so this was a problem with me and my beliefs that, if we were unevenly yoked, if we were not the same faith, that we might have trouble in our marriage. And she was open to hearing more about God, and she went to church, and we found a church together. And so that's kind of what got me back into church and being more active, is dating my wife.
Oh, wow. So God used her, through her to
yeah, and in the end, He used her to put me back in the church and be more involved in His will.
And how did she welcome the gospel?
She welcomed the gospel. We used to go to Christian concerts. In America, the Christian bands and Christian singers would put on sometimes very large concerts with the light shows and everything.
It's big shows. Yeah.
And so we would go to these shows, and at one of them, she went up to the front and committed her life to the Lord.
Wow.
And to me, that was confirmation that she was the one. And not too long after, I asked her to marry me.
Yeah. So I guess you were praying for that to happen?
At that time I was getting more involved. We were going to church together, and so there was a lot of prayer and a lot of questioning, courting her and preparing to ask her to marry me.
And I have this in my mind. Were you praying with her at this time, even though she was not Christian, or you prayed in front of her? Or
yeah, we would sometimes pray together,
and
certainly we'd go to church together, and we took some classes even at church together.
All right.
We did later, after she became a Christian, we took more classes and met with the pastor about premarital counseling, getting some advice before marriage. So these were all
That's wise.
These were all good things, and helped us grow together and helped us grow closer to God.
So I'm just curious. So from the time you knew her to the time you got married, how long?
Oh man, we knew each other in grade 6. So we were about 12 years old, 11 years
That's
old.
Amazing.
And then we were married at age 20, which is young. But
the memory you guys have together.
When I started dating her, it didn't take long because we already knew each other so well.
Wow, that's really amazing. I guess many people would love to have this kind of a love story.
Yeah.
Really,
and now we've been married 22 years.
22 years, wow. That's really, really long. Okay, so 4 years teaching in USA, I see, called to move overseas. So explain us this.
So we were working after college. I was teaching in America in a local school. And my wife was a seamstress. She was doing fashion design and costumes and things for an amusement park. So they had shows, and she would make costumes for the actors and actresses. So we had a good life in Florida. And we had the house, we had the cars, we had 2 children at that time. And we started feeling like we weren't very comfortable, like this wasn't where we were supposed to be. We had a desire to do something different, and we didn't really know what that was. So as we thought about it and prayed about it, God gave us kind of signs along the way. One of the signs, we were taking a class together in church, and we had a story about Abraham, and Abraham was asked to move to a foreign land. And he didn't know where the land was. God just said, go. And Abraham said, okay, I'll go. And so then we started thinking, well, maybe overseas would be fun. We were just thinking of the fun and the adventure and the traveling. We weren't really thinking that this was where God might use us or put us somewhere in the future. So after several months of praying and little signs like that kind of coming into our life and coming into our mind, we really felt like God was asking us to go overseas somewhere. And of course we got excited about living overseas, and we started talking about where we wanted to live. And first choice was somewhere in Europe, England or France or Germany or somewhere. And I knew that I was a teacher. And the only teaching I knew overseas was maybe a U.S. military base where they have families and I could be a teacher. So we started looking into teaching on a military base and traveling the world. I applied for a job actually with the U.S. military to be a teacher. And they had a teacher shortage at that time. They needed teachers to travel and go onto their bases. But they put my name in the system, and we waited. And we waited and we waited, and nobody ever called to give me a job. and we were already prepared.
That's another sign.
Yeah, another sign that we. So then we started questioning. Well, does God really want us to go overseas? We felt sure that He wanted us to go somewhere, but maybe this wasn't it. In that next school year, I took another job. I worked another school year in America, and I went to a job fair and it was far away. It was in Iowa, which is in the north, and I was in Florida.
Yeah.
But I decided that I would travel there, give God one more chance to fulfill this calling, to bring me overseas, if that's what He wanted for me. And when we got to the job fair, there were 50 or 60 schools from all over the world interviewing and hiring for teaching positions, and there were 2 Christian schools. And so I signed up for my interviews, and I had about 9 interviews lined up. But these 2 Christian schools didn't have a position in my area. But I went to see them anyway, and I introduced myself and talked with them. And even though I didn't have a degree in the area they wanted, they said, sign up anyway. Give us your application. Let's do an interview. So we went the next day of that job fair. I went to all my interviews. And had several job offers from that conference, and both Christian schools offered me a job.
Oh, great!
And so that was another sign that God does want me to go overseas, but He wants me to be in a Christian school and Christian education.
Where were these schools?
So one was in Korea, one was in Hong Kong. Those were the 2 Christian schools. The others I interviewed for were in Madagascar and Bahrain in the Middle East. And I did look for schools in Europe, but all the lines were very long. All the teachers wanted to go to the European schools. And I hate lines, so I took that as another sign that God doesn't want me to stand in line for a job. Yeah, but that first year, we ended up going to the Hong Kong International Christian School. And that year was probably the year that made the most difference in my life and in my wife's life. We had the knowledge, we had the Christian faith, but we didn't have the personal relationship that you should have when you're following God's will. He wants to be our friend. He wants to have a relationship with us, and we didn't have that yet. But living in Hong Kong, it was different from our home culture, and we relied on Him a lot more. So we grew in our relationship with Him.
Yeah, sometimes we need to get out of our comfort zone in order to get back to Him. Maybe that's why He called you overseas.
Yeah, looking back, you've heard the term hindsight is 20/20.
No.
Hindsight, perfect vision is 20/20. Right? So looking back on my life, I have perfect vision of what God planned for me to get me to this point. And every time that He used me, every time I stepped out of my comfort zone, as you said, He used me and prepared me for the next step in my life. And I could have stayed and been perfectly content and happy where I was, but stepping out of my comfort zone and looking for His direction led me to here. And there's no better place than to be where He wants you to be in life.
I believe you have 1 child who came back to the US?
Yeah, I have 3 children, and my oldest one has been back in the US for 4 years now. He's still in university, going to college. My second son just left 2 weeks ago. So he's, my wife and I are dealing with another child has left the home, and it's sad, but it's exciting. So he's now at university in America.
Right.
And we have one more girl. My 13-year-old Kylie is still here with us.
She's going to be for a while.
For a few more years, yes.
All right. And how would you describe your life now in China, being with God, being in China, out of...
Yeah, I mean, being here and being involved in Christian education and being able to live the life that looking back, I know this is where He led me and where He wants me to be. There's no better feeling, it's such a peace of mind. And even though we're far from family and we're in a different country, we have a peace, we have an excitement that only He could bring to that situation.
Yeah, so true. Is there a verse you would like to share with
Yeah, my favorite verse is Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. And I've used this many times in my classes and in my life. It says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." And verse 9 says, "What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you." And I just find those words comforting. If I set my mind on what is good and what is pure, if I set my mind on God, then He leads me and I will have His peace.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you very much, Andy, for your testimony.
You're very welcome.
And to take the time to also share. I will give you 1 minute with the camera,
Sure.
and I'm sure someone is waiting for that.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Well, like I said, hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, I hope I can encourage you that if you step out of your comfort zone, if you seek God and His will for your life, I think you will be blessed. I know you will be blessed. And so if you're like me, if you are a Christian or you're searching for what God has for you in your life, pray to Him. You know, He is faithful. He will answer your prayer. He will guide you and direct you to where you should be. Maybe you're kind of stagnant. Maybe things aren't going great. Maybe things aren't going bad. But you just feel like I did, that something needed to change, that something different was out there for me. And if something is different for you, something is out there for you, then I encourage you to seek that direction from God.